This is All Around Northwest Ohio, a local news magazine highlighting the people, places, and events happening all around Northwest Ohio. Stay with us as we get started with our program right after this.
Our all-around Northwest Ohio cameras are at Northwest State Community College today, and we're part of the Northwest Ohio Science and Engineering Fair. And with me right now is James Short, who is heading up everything. And James, good to have you today.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for being here today.
For folks who are not accustomed to a science fair or knowledgeable about science fairs, how does this work for these young folks?
Okay, the students usually develop their own projects with the assistance of their teachers and parents. And they're supposed to have a local fair or a county fair that would qualify them either for District Science Day and or the Regional Science Day. And if they achieve a high enough score, then they can go to those other competitions. The people that go to district could possibly qualify to go on to state. The people here today will be able to qualify in high school division for a possible trip to the International Science and Engineering Fair.
Wow. So we are at what level today here at Northwest State?
This is called a Regional Science Fair.
Okay.
We are affiliated with the Society for Science and the Public out of Washington, D.C., and they are the group that puts on the International Science and Engineering Fair, which this year is going to be held in Phoenix, Arizona.
Wow.
And we are going to be selecting two projects from this field today that will be in the top 1,800 projects in the world.
How large of an area in Northwest Ohio are we looking at?
We are officially registered or affiliated for 6 counties, and that includes our usual 4 counties, Williams and Defiance, Henry and Fulton, plus we include Paulding and Putnam counties. And then we have a few outlier school districts that I also include that are close enough that it isn't too far of a drive if they choose to do it.
Sure. Mm-hmm. In the past, have there been students here that have gone on to the international competition and really shown well?
Oh, yes. We have had quite a bit of success. In fact, today we have many of our judges out here have been past participants at the international level. We have had some second place, third place, fourth place at the international level within their divisions. And we had a young man here today that had won a $50,000 college scholarship last year at Pittsburgh International. I think it was to Arizona State University. And so there's some funding that is available for our placers.
James Short, thank you for your time. Thank you for all your efforts. It's time for us to take the cameras and go meet some of the participants today.
Well, thank you, and thank you very much for coming, and I hope you have a lovely day.
The egg sighting osmosis experiment. And who am I talking to?
Madison Ricker.
Madison, tell me a little bit about this experiment. First of all, what are we doing here?
We're trying to figure out how your egg will grow and shrink depending on what your solution is outside of your egg.
And why is that important?
So that if you would be getting something done to your blood, if it was getting too thin or too thick, your red blood cells will not explode or shrivel up.
So basically what we're saying is the egg is very similar to a cell in our body?
Yes.
And so by experimenting with the egg, we can kind of decide how it's going to react in the body, in the human body right now.
Yes.
So tell me and walk me through this experiment a little bit. What's our idea?
So what I did for my experiment is I took eggs and soaked them in vinegar for 48 hours to get rid of the calcium carbonate shell off of it so I could get to the semipermeable membrane of the egg.
So that makes it more like a human cell at that time if we take the shell off?
Yes, it does.
All right. Okay, now I'm following you. This is high-tech science for a guy like me.
So then I put them in different solutions of 10% blend of corn syrup and water. I put it in distilled water. I put some of them in just plain distilled water. Some of them were in just corn syrup, and some of them were in vinegar. And so for the the different solutions, there's solutes and water. Solutes are like your sugars and salts that can't get through the membrane of the egg or the cell in your body. So if you had a hypertonic solution like corn syrup, there is more solutes inside of your solution, so the water inside of the cell or in the egg would come out of it and go into your solution. Or if you had distilled vinegar or as a hypotonic solution, the water inside of the egg is less than outside. So the solutes inside the egg are more, so it would want to balance it, so the water outside would go inside of the egg.
Explain that to me for what it means to me on a day-to-day medical basis now. What have you learned, and how will that help me when I go to the hospital maybe?
If you would put water, plain water in your IV, your red blood cells will have more solutes inside, so the water would go inside of that and make it explode, and then you would die.
That's not what we want, right? Madison, do you want to get into the medical profession? Is that your goal?
Yes, I do.
Ah, there you go. Do you want to be a doctor, a nurse? What would you like to do?
Probably either a nurse practitioner or a surgeon. I'm not sure yet which way I want to go.
Very good. And what school are you from?
Fort Jennings.
Madison, thank you for your time today, and what a wonderful experiment.
Thank you.
Here at the Northwest Ohio Science and Engineering Fair at Northwest State Community College again, and we walked up onto a booth that says Maple Tapping Spile. And with me right now is?
Baden Skates.
And Baden, where are you from?
Pettisville.
And Baden, what in the world is a maple tapping spile?
Well, in the maple syrup producing industry, a spile is another name for a tree tap. Tree taps used to get the sap from maple trees out of the tree and into a bucket or a collection vessel. And for my project, I wanted to see, can I change the style of the tap by adding a few extra entry points for the sap compared to regular ones to get more sap from a tree than a regular tap. I recently got a 3D printer for myself, and I wanted to see, hey, can I do something with a 3D printer that can help me make something new and something for a science fair project? And that's what we're here for today.
So 3D printers are even taking over our maple syrup business nowadays.
Yes, 3D printers have a lot of easy use. It's becoming an industry standard in a lot of different projects. For my project, I had a very original tap which had very minimalistic amounts of material on it, so they broke very, very easy. My second model which I made, which is just added material to the original tap, is much sturdier. And depending on how well the testing goes within the actual trees, I might be getting a patent on this project.
Wow, so not only have you gotten a science project here for the college for this Saturday morning, you may have a career out of this.
Dependent, yes. It might go well and it might not. It's just how well the trees want to run this year.
Where do you see yourself in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 50 years when you get to be an old fellow like myself?
It's dependent how well this project goes and if I want to continue with this or not. But I also have had a passion for law enforcement as well.
So you may give up the tapping for law enforcement down the road.
That's a potential, yes, but most of the time this happens during the winter seasons.
Sounds like you might reinvent the industry.
Hopefully will.
Well, nice project, and thanks for talking to us today.
Yes, thank you.
Being in Northwest Ohio, this is somewhat of an interesting project here. It says growing corn indoors, and right now I have Abigail Teeters. Very good. I took the shot at it. I should have just asked you, Abigail.
It's
you know
all
what I
good.
mean?
Yes.
All right. Tell me a little bit, because you come from a farming family, right?
Yes, I come from a farming family.
And so corn is kind of an integral part of your life.
Yes, every year we grow sweet corn.
Is that your primary business, your folks?
Yes,
So you have quite a few acres, and where are you from around Northwest Ohio?
I'm from Miller City.
Okay. All right. So family farm in the family for generations?
Yes.
All right. We've got growing corn indoors. That's about the opposite, I think, of what your great-great-great-grandfather and grandmother would have thought about doing.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Why did you decide to try to grow corn indoors?
Well, I wanted to see how it took to grow corn indoors because you can only grow it 3 months out of the 12 months of the year, and that has to be outside. And I thought, well, everyone loves sweet corn. Why can't we grow it indoors? So I wanted to give it a shot.
Everybody loves it, and it disappears around here in the wintertime too, doesn't it?
Yes, it needs 80 degrees in order for it to grow, and you can only get that weather around here in Ohio around the summer.
So tell me about the challenges of trying to grow corn indoors.
The consistency of having heat was a big challenge, and having the right proper moisture. As you can see in a few of these photos, when we did not have the proper heat or the proper moisture, mold and fungus grew, which killed the seeds.
Wow, so you had some failures.
Yes, we had actually 8 trials fail.
Out of how many?
12.
8 out of 12. Did you ever grow any corn indoors?
Yes, actually we did, and the approximate height of each plant was 3 inches. So not very big.
You're not going to get a very big ear of corn off a 3-inch plant there, are you?
Yeah.
Is there any future whatsoever of growing corn indoors, Abigail?
I think there is, and I think that if we continue with this project, I think we can modify certain ways to grow corn indoors. And actually, I think we could have greenhouses that can grow corns indoors.
You know, you see an awful lot of greenhouses around Northwest Ohio and all around the world right now, which seems to be the future, maybe.
And actually, our ag program has started a program where we have just built a greenhouse, and what we are doing for the community is that we are growing vegetables and fruit plants indoors in the greenhouse, and we are distributing them to the community for whoever wants them.
That's amazing. That really is amazing.
Yes.
The future of farming, does it come inside rather than outside?
Yes. Oh my gosh, yes. It's a big part of my family.
Oh, wow. Well, that sounds like a lot of fun. What did you learn eventually? What was your overall takeaway from growing corn indoors?
That if Mother Nature is not in your favor, then you will not get corn.
And we all need corn, don't we?
Yes, corn is amazing.
Last year, David Baden, who is right next to me at this point in time, actually brought his exhibit here to the fair and moved on. David, talk to me a little bit about what it's like to win here, first of all, and then to move on to the international level.
So to win here, what you go through is you go through super judging. So if you have a high enough score, you go to a panel of 6 judges, and you'll have 7 minutes of presentation with your project, 3 minutes for actual presentation, and 4 minutes for questioning. And then if you're the top 4 out of that, you're able to go on to the International Science and Engineering Fair.
So the top 4 here move on.
Yes, they do.
And the international fair last year was where?
Last year it was held in Pittsburgh, and the year before it was held in Los Angeles.
Now, last year you told me you actually went as a participant, the year before as an observer, right?
Yes.
And what's the difference there? What do you do as an observer to get ready for that following year?
So as an observer, you just get to take a look at everything that happens here. So you're able to go and look at all the projects, see how you kind of get to see how judging works. You'll be able to volunteer during opening day, which is when the public is allowed to go through, and you'll get to take another look at the projects then, and it just gives you a taste for hopefully next year when you might be able to participate.
Stressful?
A little. It is a little intimidating because there are over 1,800 participants from over 65 countries around the world, and being able to see what they're doing versus what you're doing is intimidating, but it's also inspiring just to see that there's other scientific minds everywhere.
David, I'll tell you what, for a young fellow like yourself, this has to be a great competition, I would think.
Oh yes, this is a very, very good competition, and I hope that everyone here continues to perform, and hopefully this inspires more people to come out as well. This science fair has been very beneficial to me. I've been able to meet a lot of people, and it couldn't happen without Mr. Short. He's a very, very good man for this program.
David, best of luck at trying, and thanks for your time today.
Thank you.
Our program will continue right after this.
Welcome back to All Around Northwest Ohio. Right now I have with me a gentleman who actually went through this entire process at one point in time. Name?
Robert Cooper.
And Robert, where are you from?
Originally from Defiance, well, Ayersville, really.
From Ayersville?
Yeah.
This event has a very special meaning to you, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's a great chance to see what the kids are doing, give back to the community a little bit, and see the family.
So where are you at now? You're not in the area anymore.
No, I'm teaching at New Mexico State, so which is way down in Las Cruces. But yeah, I still have my family here, so it's nice to come home and see them.
So give me your history, because I was told that you actually participated in this a while ago, a couple years ago.
97 and 98, yeah,
Okay.
so 2 years. I went to the ISEF for those 2 years, got to see the world, I guess, go to Fort Worth and Louisville. So 1 year I managed to get a little award, so I hope that the kids out here get a chance to taste sweet victory, I suppose.
All right. Yeah, right at this point in time, you're being very modest, okay? Let's go back to your high school days here, okay? Let's go back to the days when you got started with your science project. Sure. All right. What got you started to lead you on this trip to New Mexico?
I don't know, just getting out there, seeing what's out there, right?
Okay.
Just get out of the community a little bit, and you see that, wow, there's a lot of kids doing some really great things, and it's a good motivation to keep working harder and see what's out there, and one step after the next, just keep building and building. That's really all it is.
What was your project when you were this age?
Oh gosh, I did something with trying to do radio waves off materials for like stealth materials. So yeah, the stealth bomber was a big deal then. And then I did one where I guess I was designing a control for like a pilot. So I guess I've always wanted to do airplanes. I don't know quite why, but no, those are the two projects, and they took me out to the ISEF.
So you won here. You went to the International, which is the ISEF that you're
Yep.
talking about. And that led you to a scholarship? Is that what happened?
Yeah, I went to Toledo, actually. I stayed home, and then I went to grad school at Michigan, and then it's been finding jobs.
And how did you end up then in New Mexico?
They hired me. Getting a professorship it's a tough gig, so you go where the jobs are, and that was where the job was. So,
Yeah.
it's it's a good gig. I get to work with Los Alamos National Lab, where they do nuclear research, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Robert, I'll let you get back to your
All right,
judging.
great.
Thank you for the
Thanks so
time, and congratulations.
Oh, thank you very much.
Whenever you're at a science fair, you always walk up to a booth that has a word that you just can't pronounce. So rather than trying to butcher that name and that word, I just look at the person with the booth and I say, hello, how are you? What's your name?
Jessica McWaters,
And where are you from?
Pettisville.
And how in the world do you pronounce that Cryptosporidium?
Cryptosporidium.
All right. And now that we know how to pronounce it, what is it?
It's a tiny little parasite that causes problems in calves.
And what kind of problems does it cause?
Diarrhea is the biggest one.
Wow, okay. So why did you get involved? Do you live on a farm? Do you have calves?
I do have calves, and I'm very interested in ag, so yeah.
What happens if this gets into their system of a calf? What will happen to that calf then past the diarrhea?
Well, it spreads really easily, so the calves can get it, and there's not a treatment for it, which is the biggest problem. So we're trying to find a treatment and a prevention method of Cryptosporidium.
Give me a little feel for your test and how you first of all came about this whole process, and then why did you get into the testing and how do you test?
All right, so the first thing that I did is I talked to my ag teacher, and last year I had the opportunity to work with microbiology and realized that I really enjoyed doing that. So I talked to my ag teacher and some vets at Napoleon Vet Clinic, and they suggested this project for me because it's such a big issue in the cattle industry because there isn't a treatment for it. So,
Wow, okay.
Yeah. So what I did is I did this trial for 6 weeks, and I collected 40 samples each week with 8 different age groups. So 5 different samples from each age group. And then I used a acid fast staining kit to see if there was Cryptosporidium present in the feces.
Okay.
So, yeah.
What is your goal right now? Are you what grade are you in at school?
I'm a junior.
So you're a junior,
Yeah.
so you still have another year
Yeah.
at high school.
Yeah, I'm
And
thinking about majoring in biology or agriculture education.
there you go.
Yes.
And then come back here,
Maybe. We'll see.
maybe. Would you think you'll ever own a farm?
I don't know.
Not going to go that far.
It's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work, isn't it, huh?
Yes.
And you'd rather be maybe a veterinarian or work with the farmers that way.
Yes. Yeah.
Very good. Well, hopefully none of us get that in our future. And hopefully you can find a way to maybe solve that for us down the road and allow these calves to grow the way they're supposed to. The question that we have here is, does smell affect taste? How's that? And with us is who?
Aiden Funkhauser.
And Aiden, where are you from?
Hilltop.
Hilltop. And what I want to know, obviously, is does smell affect taste?
So from my conclusion and my results, what I got was smell does not affect taste depending on how dependent your brain is on your nose.
So our brains are dependent on our nose.
Yes.
So talk to me about that one here. You're talking way over my head, Aiden, okay? I understand smell. I understand taste. I eat a lot, obviously, okay? But how do these two things go together?
So when you get into biology, you can become a smeller or a taster depending on a test you take. So you can either smell something. So if you smell something gross, you might not want to eat it because, of course, you're going to think it tastes gross.
Mm-hmm.
Or you could taste something gross while smelling something good. And, of course, you're going to think it smells or tastes good. But smell and taste both have something in common. They both have receptors. You have about 10,000 in your nose and about 10,000 on your tongue. So they're receptors.
All right. And how do those then affect your smell and your taste?
So for your taste, you have sweet, bitter, salty. You have like all your taste. And then in your nose, you have your scents. But it's going to affect because like if you're eating something that's sour, maybe if you smell something that's sweet, you might taste something that's sweet. But if you're not relying on what you're smelling, you're just going to taste sour.
Yeah. So initially I would think that most people would agree that if I smelled a chocolate chip cookie, okay, that all of a sudden you had made out of something that wasn't chocolate chip cookies but smelled that way, that, it would affect me a certain way. What was your hypothesis, first of all, and what was your conclusion?
So my hypothesis was I thought if somebody smelled something while tasting something of an opposite smell, I thought they would taste what they're smelling. But my conclusion showed that it's based on how dependent your brain is on your nose, so whether you're a taster or smeller.
What do you want your job to be down the road?
So my job down the road, the reason I did the project was because I plan on being a chef when I grow up, so that's what I plan on doing.
I'll tell you what, it's an intriguing experiment, and please, as you're a chef, make things that smell good and taste good for me, will you?
Yeah.
And I promise I'll come to your restaurant and eat.
Okay.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
All right, this is a booth that basically I am a working model for. How's that? If you need to do any more studies at this point in time, you can come to my house and interview me for about an hour and a half, and I can tell you thousands and thousands of times where I've tested the 5-second rule. Who am I talking to?
Elise Hoyleman from Pettisville.
From Pettisville. Now, the 5-second rule has always been something that everybody in my household has used when we've dropped a cookie, okay, a piece of candy, a chip, whatever it might have been, to justify picking it up and throwing it right in our mouth immediately. Tell me a little bit about why you got started with this thing and what you found out. Okay?
I dropped a grape on the floor. That's hence the reason that I used grapes during my experiment.
Okay.
Onto the floor, and one person yelled out 5-second rule, and the other yelled out, ew, that's gross. And I later went on to discover that there are many different universities like Rutgers University and Michigan Health Institute that have done studies that say that food is not safe on the floor.
Sure. 5 seconds depending on the floor especially, okay? If it's a clean floor, if you're at your grandma's house, you probably figure, I could pick the cookie up and eat it.
Yes.
Okay, so how did you test and what did you find out?
I tested by using bologna and grapes, and I dropped them on the floor with stale tongs.
Okay.
I tested them for 2 seconds, 5 seconds, and 20 seconds to show the relationship between before 5 seconds and after 5 seconds.
And what did you find out?
I found out that the 20-second test group held more bacteria, and the 5-second test group actually held less than the 2-second test group, which was interesting to me. So.
Well, why do you suppose at 5 seconds there are fewer germs on that piece of bologna than there are at 2?
Well, it could have been the place where I dropped the bologna or the grape. It could have been the amount of dirt that was on the floor. It just depends kind of where you're at and like what environment you're in.
So our conclusion, at 5 seconds, should we eat that piece of bologna or that cookie that we dropped?
I would not recommend it.
Too many germs even at 5 seconds.
Yes.
Oh man, but here I am. I'm walking proof. I've eaten everything and claimed that 5-second rule for 65 years now. And I'm still alive.
Yes.
But you still don't recommend
I would
it.
not recommend it.
All right, so there you go, the 5-second rule. Even though it's worked for me, it may not work for you. Thanks a lot for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Probably the perfect booth for me because I'm, first of all, totally afraid of self-driving automobiles, and I'm also against anything that doesn't have somebody with their hands on the wheel. How's that, okay? Yeah. Those two things. But this says engineering a self-navigating robot. Who am I talking to?
I'm Adley McNeil. I'm from Hilltop High School. I'm in 11th grade.
Yeah. And you are 100% convinced probably now that we are going to have self-driving vehicles all over the world before your time on this planet is done.
Yeah, I'm fairly certain we'll have that. Right now, NASA's planning on sending missions to Mars to do robots only. They're going to mine up materials.
Okay.
And they want to be completely robotic. No, they want just kind of manual oversight, but they don't want anyone on Mars yet. They're going to manage resources. In like 6 to 12 years, they want to then send people, recover them, stuff like that. But so the project of this is to maybe help with that, further it. You know, they're always kind of over there, what they're doing. My teacher came in this year and you do a science fair project. I'm like, okay, well, I have this Lego EV3. I've done it for 3 years. I know how to use it. So I put it forth to my science fair, and I made these 3 mazes, and I made one program, and it made it like go straight. It sensed a wall 5 centimeters. It backed up a smidge, and then it would take a right, go straight, and repeat, make 4 rights, and then it would go straight, sense something, then make 4 lefts, and it did that continuously until it made it through the maze.
So how are you with the conclusion here? Were you happy with the results that you came up with?
Yes, I was actually very happy. It completed the maze every single time, which was really a surprise because some of them I thought, okay, it's going to get like stuck in it, like almost like an infinite loop almost, because it's not going to quite make a turn right or something. It's going to get caught. But every single time I tested it 10 times for each maze. It made it through, and it made it through under a minute. And my original hypothesis was it's not going to make it maybe 5 minutes, because I thought I was going to get stuck at one point or something was going to go wrong, maybe not even complete it every single time.
Wow. Amazing. That is an interesting project. That is an interesting robot that you've got down there. Yep. And as long as you stay with robots and don't put me in a car, we're friends. How's that?
Yeah, sounds good to me.
All Around Northwest Ohio, a local news magazine highlighting the people, places, and events in Northwest Ohio, is produced for WNHO by Richer Productions. If your group or organization would like to be featured on All Around Northwest Ohio, email ken@wnho.tv or call 419-572-4826. Thanks for watching. Join us next time as we go all around Northwest Ohio.